that are abroad. Good afternoon to our listeners within the Gambia. My name is Larry Sise, and with me is my colleague Lamin Mane. We are back at Echo TV International for another program that was supposed to happen yesterday. It couldn't because we all had some serious things to do, particularly Lamin Mane. We are going to be talking about 4 different topical issues today. Topical issue 1 would be a brief explanation of the process of how UDP selects its flag bearer and the nuances involved in it. Topic 2 will be on the Russian oil scandal. That scandal we are revisiting because in last week's Mansakunda press conference, 4 different ministers expressed 4 different views on the Russian oil scandal. So we want to contextualize what the ministers have said and what the reality on the ground from our perspective is. The third one is the depreciation of the Dalasi. Again, the finance minister in that same Mansakunda press conference talked about the depreciation of the Dalasi, and he gave 2 reasons why the Dalasi is depreciating. We are going to look at that statement of the finance minister, and we are going to give our 2 pennies of thoughts on what the minister's view on the depreciation of the Dalasi is. The 4th one is the IMF and the World Bank. Collectively, these are the Bretton Woods institutions. The IMF has given the Gambia government some money. When the World Bank is saying, hey, be careful how you spend those monies and the debts you are contracting, lest you derail your economy. I mean, I think those are the 4 issues that we are going to be dealing with. Maybe you can start.
Yes, thank you very much, Larry. And good morning, good afternoon to our listeners around the globe, because now Echo TV is gone global. So we want to say to all of you, thank you for receiving us in your homes and for following our programs, particularly this one, The Gambia We Want. Thank you very much. And as Larry said, we'll be discussing those few issues today. We're going to talk about the UDP's program for the Gambia once we take power. But given the current situation and what's trending, we will put that off to next week before we deal with that. So we'll deal with the 4 issues raised by Larry, who I'm happy to have back on the platform here because I was getting a bit lonely here, you know. But there are so many things to do. So he's back, and I'm happy to be with him back on the platform. And we thank you all for your usual presence with us. Thank you.
Good. Now, I think I will. I will let you briefly discuss the first one, which is the flag bearer selection process of the UDP, and then we can go into the other 3 topical issues.
Right. The flag bearer selection of the UDP is characteristic of the internal democracy of the party. What we usually do is, every time we're going for a presidential election, we invite UDP members to submit their applications for flag bearer selection. Anybody who is interested in being a flag bearer of the party can submit their candidature once we announce the opening. And usually, anybody who is a member of the UDP until the eve of the flag bearer selection can apply. So usually what happens is we publish a list. Sorry, I think problems with the microphone. Is it on? It seems to have gone off. So what we usually do is we publish the notice for applications. And people put in their applications for flag bearer, and then we do a selection based on what happens after the applications have been received. So in this particular case, we received, usually just before the presidential elections, we publish an invitation to any UDP member who wishes to apply for the position of flag bearer. Because our position of flag bearer and party leader are different. The party leader is Mr. Ousseynou Dabo. He is the flag bearer and secretary general of the party. The flag bearer is open to any UDP member who wishes to apply. So we invite applications from members who wish to apply, and anybody who was a member of the UDP until, who became a member the day before the flag bearer position was announced, that person can apply. So people apply to become flag bearer. This year, when we published it, and usually publish it for 2 weeks, we had 11 applicants. So 11 applicants put in their application for flag bearer. It ended on the 2nd of September, and on the 3rd, we conducted interviews of the 11 applicants. We were supposed to have finished on the 11th, but it spilled over to yesterday, so we continued the interviews on Thursday and Friday. So we interviewed all the 11 applicants. Each one would say why they want to become flag bearer, and then they would give a program that they would implement in the first 60 days when they become president, and in the subsequent period. In the first 100 days, because these are what we call the grace period. So everyone would explain that to the selection, to the committee that was set up to do the vetting. So that committee comprises 11 members, the vetting committee. Coincidentally, we had 11 applicants this year, but the vetting committee is also 11 members. And they conduct the interviews. Once the interviews are over, we move to the next phases of the selection. But I won't bother you with the details of that. We will get to a point where on the 10th of this month, that's next week, Wednesday, the vetting process that has been done, during the vetting, we rank the applicants based on their presentations to the vetting committee, etc. That ranking will be submitted to the to the central committee on the 10th. And the central committee at that point would choose the top 3 candidates by ranking. And these are the top 3 who would proceed to the next phase of the selection. So the other 8 will be dropped. So those top 3 would go to the last phase of the selection. At that point, once it's the top 3 names are transferred to the selection committee, which comprises the National Executive Committee of 65 members, plus representatives from the regions. And each region sends in 1 male and 1 female representative, because we ensure gender parity. Once those people meet, that becomes a total of 81 people, the selection committee meets now for the final phase of the selection. So once the selection committee receives the 3 names, the committee of elders comes into play. They would now meet with the top 3 candidates and tell them, does anybody want to desist in favor of one candidate? So if after the 3, if 2 desist for one candidate, then there's no more election. We just confirm that person as the flag bearer. If one desists or if none desist, then we go to election. And at the election, the one who comes up top, of course, wins the election and becomes the flag bearer. But important to note here, for the election of the flag bearer and any other election in the UDP, they are all conducted by the IEC. We do not conduct our own elections. We invite the IEC to send in their officers to conduct our elections for us, for transparency, fairness, and openness of the whole procedure. And we think that's extremely important because the UDP wants to walk the talk. What we say, we want to see in the country, in terms of democracy, in terms of transparent, free and fair elections, is what we practice at the level of the UDP. So our elections are conducted by the IEC, which again says that we have absolutely nothing against the IEC. We believe that they are an institution that is entrusted with organizing elections in this country. And what we ask them to do at the level of the UDP is what we want to see them do at the national level, that is, conduct free, fair, and transparent elections.
That respects the will of the people.
Exactly. So the veracity of the voting will be respected. So they will come and conduct elections for us on the 10th, if there are elections, and then we move forward. So if two of the three candidates whose names are given to the selection committee desist in favor of one, there wouldn't be any election. If they don't desist, then we hold elections and then we move forward. And these elections are usually are always through secret ballot. Of course, the committee can decide to change that and go by show of hands, but so far we've done it by secret ballot. So this is what happens at the UDP. And this is just testimony to the internal democracy in the UDP. We preach transparent, free and fair elections for the country, and we implement it at our own level. We do not say one thing for the country and do the opposite for the party. What we want for the party is what we want for the country. What we do at the level of the party is what we want to see done at the national level. So that is, in short, in a nutshell, the explanation of our election process for the selection of the flag bearer. Thank you, Larry.
Thank you very much, Lamin. I think that is very clear. The internal democratic dynamics within the UDP, I think, has caught a lot of people by surprise. In that there are people out there who thought we are a cult, but I don't think cults go through this kind of internal processes just to select an office bearer. There are others who say the whole process is rubber-stamped. That's their opinion. It's not rubber-stamped. That's why this process is so rigorous and so transparent the way it is. For me, what caps it all is the involvement of the Independent Electoral Commission, if need be, because that shows how confident we are within the internal processes of our democratic organization, yes, enough to entrust the Independent Electoral Committee with the selection process.
Yes.
And as you say, this is a vote of confidence on the IEC. And if IEC can do those internal processes for UDP in a transparent, fair, free, and open manner that respects the will of the people, if they can do that for the UDP, surely they can do it for
at the national level,
the country at the national level. And I think we need to emphasize that, to say it's a vote of confidence in the institution, and I hope they take it that way.
Yeah, and just to add to what you said there, that it's not a rubber stamp in the selection of the flag bearer. I'll give you just one example. Ousseynou Dabo is treated just like any other applicant. He was invited to come and for his interview on Thursday at 4 p.m. He showed up just before 4 p.m. and he was told that the process was delayed. And he sat there for well over an hour waiting for his turn. And graciously, no show of irritation or anything. And he was actually just after Lamin J. Dabo. When we got there, Lamin J. Dabo was waiting already as well. He was also late for his interview. And he also sat there graciously waiting for his turn. And Ousseynou Dabo sat there as well and waited for Lamin J. Dabo to go in, conduct his interview, and then leave, and then Ousseynou Dabo went in after that. So Ousseynou waited for 1 hour plus without any show of irritation or impatience or anything, because he knows that the process can stall sometimes because of the questions asked and how long it takes. So this is all to show that this is no rubber stamp, and there is no favoritism of any sort, and there is no undue treatment given to anybody, least of all Ousseynou Dabo, because he would never have it. He wants everybody to be treated in the same way.
Yeah.
I thought that was important to indicate.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much. I think that's very clear. Now let's go to the second item on our list, which is the Russian oil scandal. The reason why we are bringing this back into the discussion domain is because Friday before yesterday, there was a Mansakunda press conference at the Kairaba International Conference Center, where 4 ministers gave their opinions on the Russian oil scandal. You will recall this is the scandal that the Republic, the investigative journalistic outfit investigated and came out with a very, very serious report on how Russian oil found its way in the Gambian markets, got sold, all in contravention of a UN sanction that the Gambia voted for. These 4 ministers gave very very different opinions on this scandal. But the underlying factor in the opinions is that it's not a big deal. And we're saying it's a huge deal in 2 dimensions. Dimension 1, domestically, the corruption that is behind it. And dimension number 2, the flagrant violation of international commitments that the government signed off to. Who are these 4 ministers at this Mansakunda press conference the Friday before yesterday? One is Minister Ahmad Bah, the Minister for Local Government. He gave an opinion, and that opinion says that, and I'm quoting him, he says, there is no corruption, only administrative lapses. There is no corruption, only administrative lapses. Minister Dauda Jallo, the Minister for Justice, he calls the National Assembly's recommendations, quote unquote, advisory and not binding. Advisory and not binding. Minister Sidi Keita, Finance, he downplayed the scandal and insisted that there was no evidence of corruption. No evidence of corruption, even though the National Assembly says, or the investigation say, 2 ministers need to be sanctioned. Then you had Mr. Maud Sise, who is the Chief of Staff, and I think he's also doubling as Presidential Affairs Minister, who ridiculed the National Assembly's investigation by calling it weak. He says the National Assembly's investigation is weak. And then you had the Governor of the Central Bank in his recent monetary statement revealing that because of the Russian oil scandal, 2 banks have been sanctioned. Access Bank, $200,000, EcoBank, $200,000. Now, put in context the fact that this is a multi-million-dollar scandal, where you sanction a bank $200,000 for its role in the saga. Now, you may say 200,000 is a lot of money, but when you put it in the context of the amount of money that the Russian oil scandal is all about, it ranges from a floor of 30 million to a ceiling of 60 million. And $60 million is not chicken change. And so therefore, the much more serious action needed to be taken against all those involved in it, whether they are individuals or institutions. Now, I want to bring in an aspect which says that the Ministry of Youth and Sports has sanctioned and demoted a senior officer in that ministry for misappropriating 14.55 million Gambian dollars. That is the equivalent of 194,000 euros approximately. They sanctioned this guy and they demoted him. Compare that to what the former Permanent Secretary Banja did at the Ministry of Fisheries, and you realize that these people are not serious about corruption. My final take on this is that the government of the Gambia hasn't been audited in terms of the audited financial statements since Barrow was re-elected. It hasn't been audited. If it has been audited, it hasn't been released to the public domain. All the audits that we've been referring to have been from the National Audit Office's website and from different sources. But the government has not been audited financially since Barrow was re-elected in 2021. That speaks volumes about their seriousness or lack thereof on corruption. I think I will stop there.
I think also the Minister of Justice was also present at that press conference, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
They all made this statement.
And he made the statement that it's nothing serious, right? Something to that effect.
He says the recommendation, he calls the National Assembly's recommendations as quote unquote advisory and not binding.
And not binding. Good.
And I think this is very loaded.
Exactly. Because I want to start with that. I want to start with that because if the Minister of Justice calls it advisory and not binding, you know, it's in line with what Barrow said about audit reports. They are just opinions.
Yeah. This is also an opinion.
Exactly. It's advisory, it's an opinion. And the serious part about that is that the Ministry of Justice and the Director of Public Prosecutions, which is based in the ministry, these are the outfits that are responsible for deciding. They have prosecutorial discretion. They decide whether to prosecute a case that's referred to them or not. They are the ones who say, this case, we don't have enough evidence, we won't prosecute it. Or we have enough evidence, we'll prosecute it. Or they will say, we have enough evidence, but the political and other fallout, economic and also political, economic, etc., would be such that the benefits of prosecuting it are really minor. So we don't think it's important to prosecute it, and they would drop the case. So what he's telling us here is that the Ministry of Justice does not plan to prosecute this case.
Anybody.
And it becomes, what we see is that the Ministry of Justice is where cases go to die.
Yeah.
Because anytime the police does their prosecution, so their investigation, rather they send it to the Ministry of Justice for opinion, it just goes dormant there. Yeah. And that is really unfortunate. An oil scandal, which involves, some put it at 35 million US dollars.
Others as much as.
And others put it as high as 65 million US dollars of illegal importation and distribution of oil in this country from a sanctioned country, a country that was sanctioned by the UN. And we are part of that UN, and we voted for those sanctions. Yeah. And we go sanction busting to bring in oil from that country and distribute it here. To compound it all, substandard oil, from all indications of the investigation. And the Minister of Justice turns around and tells us that it's just advisory and it's not binding. That's really unfortunate.
It's actually a huge message.
Exactly. And Ahmad Ba, of course, we are used to that. For him, there is no corruption in this country. That is a litany that comes from him all the time. Yeah. So, you know, we don't even bother about that because we know where he stands on this. His own tourism board referred him to the National Assembly for investigation when he was Minister of Tourism, and we saw what happened to that. Yeah. So, you know.
And then the ecologists.
Ecologists, exactly.
Going on national TV.
Right.
To say.
Yeah. So to admit guilt, but nothing happens out of it. So all of these things have been happening in this country. And this government has no intention to fight corruption in this country. And that has to be clear to the Gambians. And as long as they are here, they will not fight corruption. The other day, the Minister of Finance released a number of names saying who are being prosecuted. Yeah, these are just a drop in the ocean compared to the number of people who should have been prosecuted. And we'll wait and see what happens to those cases. But even more importantly, this government passed an anti-corruption bill in 2023, and it is yet to appoint an anti-corruption commission to implement that. And lo and behold, that bill says any corruption that took place until the day of the adoption of that bill is excluded from the purview of that law. So anybody who did anything related to corruption from 2017, when Barrow came to power, until 2023, you get away scot-free. That is most unfortunate.
Whatever you have done.
Yeah, that is most unfortunate. That is exactly the same thing that Jammeh tried to do with the APRC and AFPRC gang when he indemnified them for anything that was done before the adoption of the 1997 Constitution. And it did not stand. And this one also will not stand. The embezzlement, the misappropriation and diversion of public funds cannot just be written off as bad debt and bad practice. It cannot be written off. That will be prosecuted one day or another. He has to understand that. He cannot just write it off. But basically what is important is for the Gambians to know that this government has never fought any corruption case in this country since it came to power, and has not prosecuted anything and got to a conclusion except in that Banja case where a limited amount of money was involved. He was sent to prison for a year or so, and a few months down the line he was pardoned. So it just shows the lack of will of this government to fight corruption, which is rampant in this country, which is destroying our economy, which is destroying this country. And the government decides not to fight it at all. So the Gambians have to be alive to that and realize that Barrow's government cannot be reformed. Barrow's government cannot do the right thing for this country. They just have to be voted out of office, and this time around there will be no rigging of elections. There will be no stealing of people's victory. Once they are voted out in 2026, there will be history. That should be clear, and the Gambians should work towards that. We have to love ourselves and our country more than we are lenient towards this government.
Yeah. On the 14.55 million Dalasi or 194,000 euro scandal at the Ministry of Youth and Sports, this high-ranking official who has been demoted, that money was meant for the national team.
Okay.
And he misappropriated it. Yes, according to them, he has paid restitution. But the Scorpions were playing the Harambee Stars in Nairobi yesterday in a huge stadium, world-class stadium. I've attended games in that stadium. I'm sure you
Kasarani, I was there too.
You know.
Yeah.
World-class stadium, world-class facilities. And the Kenyan fans were touting the Gambian's national team in saying, hey, how can these guys beat us like this? This is the poorest country on the African continent. They don't even have a workable stadium. This is what the Kenyans were saying online after the defeat, after their defeat yesterday. So we are saying, while people are misappropriating funds, there are other Gambians out there, like our national team, who are flying the Gambian flag through great resilience and discomfort to themselves, because they had to fly to Nairobi to play a game. Yeah. In the return leg, they will have to go to Senegal or Morocco or some other place to play, because we don't have the capacity or the willingness to renovate a 40,000 seat stadium to world standards for 3 years and for tens of millions of Dalasis. Yeah. It's sad.
It is extremely sad, and it shows how this government has let down the Gambians. A team so talented, which can leave this country, go all the way to Kasarani Stadium in Nairobi, full of Kenyan supporters, and they still manage to walk away with a 3-1 victory. If that team is properly supported, what can they achieve?
Yeah.
Imagine if they have the whole stadium full in the Gambia with 30 to 40,000 supporters from the Gambia behind them. As we say, that's the 12th man on the team. What can they do with that sort of support? But every time we shuttle them off to some countries, the fatigue, the environment, which is not what it should have been if they had played here, they go to all of those things and they still manage to achieve results. What if we could have played those matches here? Not only our football stars would perform better because they have the support of the home crowd, they would have rested better, they would have brought in money to the country because the team who comes to play here will bring in foreign exchange. Yeah. They will come and stay in hotels here, they will consume here. So that brings money to the country. It's again some form of tourism for the country. Yeah. But we lose all of that. And the exposure of the country, that will be what the international media will be shining on the Gambia, on the stadium, on the different facilities. And we would have that as publicity for the Gambia, but we lose all of that to other countries, just because the government keeps letting us down. And you know, and somebody who walks away with 14 million, and you just demote him, because it's restitution. The restitution is not the point. Larry, when somebody steals a cow here or a goat and they're taken to court, they are not just let to go because they've returned the goat or the cow. They are sentenced.
They are sentenced and fined.
Because the crime has been committed. The restitution is something else. But the crime of theft has been committed. This guy also stole 14 million from our national coffers. Demotion is not the answer. Yeah. But it just says the same thing. This government has no intention to fight corruption. Yeah. Simple as that.
Yeah. When you look at the level of corruption, I even now forgot how much money they say they paid for the renovation of the National Stadium. I think it's around 14.
If I remember correctly, it's 90-something million dollars.
Yeah, nearly $100 million. Yeah. 30,000, 40,000 seater, almost $100 million spent. Now, recently, the government boldly announced that they have acquired land in Lameng for a new stadium. So for me, it's like it's a racket.
It's a total racket.
We spent 40 million, 90 million, 100 million on renovating the stadium. It hasn't been renovated to standard. We parked that.
And we're going to build a new stadium.
We go out to build a new stadium.
Just like they renovated the airport for 41 million.
For $41 million.
And then say they're going to build a new airport because it's not up to standard. Yeah. They sunk a lot of money into the Banjul port development and bought half die. Yeah. Which they want to turn into some real estate project. Yeah. And then they go build a port in Sanya. It's the same thing. So it's just the unending corruption and mismanagement. Develop the stadium in the Independence Stadium. And you can build a second stadium if you want. We have two. Yeah.
And the country needs that.
Yeah, yeah.
The country needs that.
But if you ask me if we were to do that, I wouldn't go build in Lameng. I'd probably go a bit up country to decentralize the development.
Yeah. Build the stadium in the middle of the country.
Yeah, go towards NRR or CRR or NBR. I have nothing against Lameng. Let's be clear about that. No. But I think for to decentralize development, it would be good to do that because then you allow the country to develop, a bit more homogeneously.
Even the land in Lameng in question, the youths were adamantly against it at some point because it was designated for something else for youth empowerment. Okay. And so that is going to be taken. But suffice it to say, the point to be made is that they keep shifting the goalposts on these things, and each goalpost costs about 100 million as you keep as you keep moving them. Mm-hmm. The third issue is the depreciation of the Dalasi, and the finance minister's views on it. Mm-hmm. At the same Mansakunda press conference, the finance minister talked about the depreciation of the Dalasi, and he says there are two underlying reasons why the Dalasi is depreciating. Underlying reason one is the low export earnings, and underlying reason two is the limited foreign currency inflows into the economy. Now, I don't know economists, when you put two of us in the room, we are likely to disagree. And then the principle of ceteris paribus comes in. Now, maybe the minister is thinking differently, but I am saying the low export earnings is the result of the country not being able to manufacture and export anything, bring value addition. And the limited foreign currency inflows is also intrinsically related to the fact that the economy is not producing anything it can sell, so it can earn foreign exchange. And that is why I earlier said the two are not mutually exclusive. They are actually intrinsically interrelated. One feeds into another. Yeah. So for the minister to say the depreciation of the Dalasi has got nothing to do with corruption, and it has got nothing to do with the illegal payments that have been in social media, and we are saying they have to have an impact on the value of the Dalasi.
Absolutely.
Corruption has an impact on our Dalasi, because somebody fixes our exchange rates, even at the banks. My favorite example is when you go to the Lumos. These days, the Lumos don't want you to pay them in Dalasis. They quote the prices that you are going to pay in CFA, and there the seller sets the exchange rate that you're going to buy his product for. So they are intricately linked.
Absolutely.
They are interrelated. And of course, the biggest example to say corruption feeds into the depreciation of the Dalasi is the recent revelation on social media that allegedly $600 million worth of cancelled checks were cashed at the central bank. Since that thing came out, nobody in government responded. 600 million in cancelled checks, allegedly encashed at the central bank. Now, whether this is true or not is at the crux of the matter. And I think when this thing came out, it was incumbent for the finance minister and his governor to talk about these things. Just as it is incumbent for the finance minister and his governor to be on the same page on core economic issues facing the country. Now, the finance minister is saying that the Russian oil scandal shows no evidence of corruption. But on the other hand, the governor of the central bank just informed this week, just informed Gambians that two banks, Access Bank and Eco Bank, have been fined. No, he didn't use fine. He used the word have been sanctioned, $200,000 each for their roles, respective roles in the Russian oil scandal. So, minister is saying, no, it's not a big deal. Governor is saying, oh, it's a big deal because we find the banks. So, it's like the right hand and the left hand don't even know they coexist.
You know, and what's even more unfortunate about that is that those secondary banks, Access Bank and Eco Bank, are under the control of the central bank.
Yeah, under the banking supervision.
They have a banking supervision department. They're supposed to be supervising those things to make sure they don't happen. Yeah. So what was the banking supervision department doing? So the central bank itself has a role in that situation. Not just those secondary banks, but central bank itself. What do they do about themselves? Did they do anything to correct that in the central bank? Did they do anything? I doubt it. But more importantly, again, when we get, not that this is not important, but I mean more seriously I should say, when the Minister of Finance and Economy tells you that the depreciation of the Dalasi has got nothing to do with corruption, either he doesn't understand economics at all, he's the statistic accountant he is, or he's just being disingenuous.
Or both.
Or both, yeah. Corruption has everything to do with the depreciation of the Dalasi. Our infrastructure development in the country is costing us huge amounts of money in corruption. And those loans are going to be repaid.
By us.
By us. Today we carry a debt stock of more than $130 billion, even though the government says otherwise. They try to limit it to about 116, 118 billion. It's over $130 billion that we carry in debt stock, that we know of. And there are hidden debts in this country which will only come out when this government goes away. Just like in Senegal, they found 5 trillion CFA in hidden debt after Macky left. We will find per capita a higher amount in the Gambia.
Yeah, that 5 trillion CFA was about 7 billion
US dollars, yeah.
I think Gambia's is going to...
The amount will not be that high, but per capita, it will be higher than Senegal. Okay? So we have that. And of course, when we have that kind of debt, the Dalasi will depreciate.
Yep.
Because when we have that kind of debt, we're going to buy foreign exchange to pay off that debt.
Yeah.
Because the large amount, the bulk of that debt is contracted in foreign exchange.
Yeah.
And the Dalasi depreciating means we pay much more money, for the debt. So even if they do not contract any more debt next year, which is not going to happen, they will contract more debt. Just by the mechanical effect of the depreciation of the Dalasi, the debt stock will be higher next year. So of course there is corruption feeding into the depreciation of the Dalasi. Secondly, we do not have a real economy in this country. And the real economy is what sustains the currency. If we have a real economy, we have a manufacturing sector that is producing and selling abroad to earn foreign exchange that will sustain the Dalasi. If our agricultural sector was performing and we are selling groundnuts or processed products,
to bring value addition,
we will have value addition and stay on all the value chain and we'll be able to sell and earn more foreign exchange that will strengthen the Dalasi. If our tourism sector were working and we have more tourists coming into the country and more foreign exchange coming subsequently, that will strengthen the Dalasi. But the tourism sector is dying from the corruption we see there. The TDA lands have been sold off under the table in a number of cases, and we are losing money, and these lands are not being developed. Gambians could have been allocated those lands to develop, and we have more indigenous businesses coming up, but they're being given to foreigners only, and we're losing money there. The amount of corruption that is happening in Nawek is feeding into the tourism sector because the price of electricity has gone up for Nawek by 47%, sorry, for the tourist industry by 47%. If you increase the price of electricity for the tourism sector by 47%, naturally the room rates will go up. Yeah. And if the room rates go up, you have less tourism, you have less people coming in, they will go to more competitive countries like Senegal, like Cape Verde, etc. They will go to those countries. So we have less tourism as a result of this corruption, and we get less competitive and less Dalasi falls. The same thing happens in all other sectors of the economy. Because if Nawek is underperforming, in spite of receiving over $400 million during the Barrow regime, over $440 million came to Nawek, and they're still underperforming. Of course, naturally, investors will go look elsewhere. Yeah. Electricity is a major component in any company's investment. So,
and profit margin.
Exactly. So if electricity is expensive here, they will go elsewhere. In Senegal today, they are selling the kilowatt hour at about 23 francs per kilowatt. Here we're selling it about 130 something, 138. Why would you want to come and invest in the Gambia, a smaller market, a more corrupt economy, and poor infrastructure, when you can invest in Senegal? Of course it won't happen. So every single aspect you look at, this government is killing this country. It is disappointing the Gambians. It is letting us down. Yeah. And there are no attempts to change that. So that's why this government is beyond reform. What we should do is just vote it out and bring in a UDP-led government in 2026 to do what is right in this country. This government will not do it. They have no intention to do it.
They can't do it.
not only they cannot, but even the intention is not there.
Yeah, but that's
The
why
incompetence,
I say they can't.
Yeah, the incompetence and the lack of will combined makes it horrible for us. So we have to be able to do something about that.
Let's close on this one by looking at what the managing director of NAWEC said on Coffee Time last week. He lamented about the depreciation of the Dalasi and how that negatively impacts NAWEC's ability to import inputs.
Yeah.
And he says every time the Dalasi depreciates, our debt stock increases, our ability to purchase inputs also becomes more difficult because the depreciation of the Dalasi. So, Mr. Minister, you are wrong
Yeah,
on the question of the depreciation of the Dalasi.
absolutely.
It is linked to the country's ability to manufacture and sell abroad. It is also linked to selling abroad and bringing that foreign currency back into the economy as forex inflows. Talk to NAWEC about the depreciation. I think they will give you a good rundown on their issues.
The cost they incur because of that. And it's the same thing that everybody incurs in this country. And that is why, in spite of all what they're saying, that's why inflation is going through the roof.
Yeah.
Because when the Dalasi depreciates, everything we import just goes up in cost.
Yeah.
It's just simple common sense. But they deny all of that, as you would say, they keep deflecting. But that's the reality.
They deflect.
That's the reality. Yeah.
Okay, the final issue now is the IMF. And we are saying this because I think it was last week. The IMF gave the Gambia government $165 million US in two components. Component one is 100 million from the enhanced credit facility. I think that is what gives the government budget support, some subsidies and grants, 100 million from the enhanced credit facility, ECF. The 65 million is for climate smart financing. Climate smart financing. Oh boy, these guys are going to have a field day on these monies.
Yeah.
But you know what? As the IMF is doing this, the World Bank is saying to the Gambia government, be careful the way you spend your resources. You need to reform your expenditure patterns, and you also need to reform your debt, rationalize your debt structure, or you risk derailing your economy. I am bringing this up because I think it's very telling that the Bretton Woods institutions, IMF, World Bank, one is busy dishing out money, the other is busy warning the government, advising the government to watch out for how much they spend and how much they borrow, because those two combined can derail the economy. I find it very interesting.
Yeah, and you know, also the monies received by the government on the extended credit facility is not something the government should brag about. Yeah. ECF is an indictment on the government.
I know.
It means that you are not performing. We're going to help you to perform. And the 100 million, actually, this is supposed to bring in good governance. Yeah. And to ensure that the money is used properly.
Financial sector
reforms, exactly. That is what it's supposed to be. That's an indictment telling them that you are doing poorly. We're going to help you to do properly. But it's not going to happen.
And they are bragging about that.
Yeah, because they think the Gambians don't understand. And that's why we have to explain to the Gambians, ECF is not a recognition of the government's performance. ECF is actually an indictment on any government to say that you are not performing. You're going the wrong way. We're going to help you to bring you back on track. That's what ECF is all about. Yeah. And also, when I hear of climate smart financing, this is just a joke. It's a joke. Climate smart financing is at the level of infrastructure development. Yeah. When you develop infrastructure, what you do is what we call climate proofing of the infrastructure. Look at Battle Harding today. Look at the OIC roads. When it rains, the water goes into people's houses and compounds. The rain is going to end up chipping away parts of the Battle Harding road because the embankments have not been climate proofed.
The road itself.
Exactly. Climate proofing is supposed to be the infrastructure development and other investments in hard infrastructure. That's why you have the climate proofing. This government has had no track record of doing that, and they're not going to do it. So what is this climate smart investment supposed to be coming in if it's not just a simple jargon? But the most annoying part of this is that the IMF World Bank know what is happening in the country. Yes. But they're just helping this country to go and indebt itself more and more. Our debt overhang is going to get worse and worse. And we'll get to a point where they will slap structural adjustment on us, whereas they contributed to that problem.
In fact, they would have precipitated it.
What we saw in Senegal, the mismanagement of the economy, the hidden debt, where $7 billion worth of investments were diverted and hidden from the country with the complicity of the Bretton Woods institutions. They cannot tell us that they didn't see it. They saw it. They saw it. If they didn't see it, then they are derelict. And today, Senegal is having to deal with that. We're seeing the same things in these countries. We need financial institutions to be much more demanding. They wouldn't do it in public because that's not their job. But in private, with the governments, you have to be more demanding and tell them we cannot do this because you won't. This year, for example, you'll have very little money coming in terms of budget support from bilateral donors.
Especially grants.
Yeah. The Bretton Woods institutions are doing it, but the other institutions, I don't think they will do much budget support this year because the government is performing very poorly. And this is what we need to be careful about. Don't help them to destroy our economy further, because the next governments will have to pay for that. They will have to deal with that. They will have to go and renegotiate the debt. They will have to get debt forgiveness or debt resettling. We do not want to have to go through that.
Just as Senegal is having to do it
Exactly.
now.
Senegal is lucky in the sense that they now are a major producer of oil and gas. In our case, the oil and gas.
And gold.
Yes, gold, and a lot of things, illuminite,
yes.
And all of that.
Illuminite is.
Ours is being exported privately by some people, etc. So Senegal has a lot of resources going its way today. We don't. Our oil and gas, nobody tells us what's happening to it. Yeah. Even though we're sitting on a gold mine there, nobody's telling us. Our illuminite is being exported privately by some individual. They call it black sand. Black sand is the illuminite. It's being exported privately by some people. Timber in the country or smuggled into the country is being exported privately by some people. And the money going to private accounts.
And fisheries.
Exactly, all of that. So if your debt overhang gets worse than it is already, next government is being put into trouble. So the Bretton Woods institutions, we implore you to be more observant and to be much more stringent on this government. The debt that you send to these countries is important, but you shouldn't give debt just for the volume of debt. Because you have money to give out, to lend, you need to lend it quickly, so you just lend it. No, it should be based on development effectiveness. Development effectiveness should be the only overriding factor for granting loans to countries. Not the disbursements that you need to do because you have to give out money to be able to raise more funding and get more money to replenish your accounts. There should be much more, observant than that.
They were jubilating about this ECF results. You see, they have so much confidence in us, they gave us 165.
Yeah, but it's quite the opposite. It's because we are performing poorly.
It's quite
the opposite, yeah.
Opposite.
Yeah.
I want to close this by saying we keep making reference to the Senegalese situation because when Macky was leaving, the debt to GDP ratio he claimed was around 65 to 75% of GDP. And then when he left, the IMF and the new Senegalese government came in and found out that the debt to GDP ratio is 100%.
Yeah, plus.
Just about 100%.
It's more than, like, initially they put it at 97%,
yes,
but they found that it's more than 100% now.
More than 100% now.
Yeah.
They won't tell you how much more, but they just say about 100.
In fact, when Usman Sonko was campaigning against them, when they said it was 65 to 70%, he said no, it's at least 87%.
87%. Yeah.
And they were saying he's crazy. That cannot happen. They call him all sorts of names.
Yeah, but just
and even his 87% was conservative.
But just as we've been saying on various platforms, to say the government's debt to GDP ratio is at best bogus because it is underreporting.
Yeah.
I made a statement on Coffee Time at one point to say, I think it is between 85 and 95% of GDP.
Yeah, yeah.
And that is not taking into account the hidden debts that they've been contracting. And I said that at the time when they contracted 2 billion from the Islamic Development Bank, which did not find its way into the national budget because they have not announced that it was going to be part of the national budget. Yeah,
just like the $15 million they got from Africa 50.
Africa 50.
We didn't see where it's gone to.
Okay.
Where is it gone to?
Yeah.
Have the other installments, the tranches, have they been paid? We don't know. What is happening to that money?
Yeah.
You know, and many other things that are happening here, which we'll only find out once this government is replaced in 2026.
And you know, the government is still very quiet about that dock workers allegation when I was at Coffee Time to say Al-Bayrak gave this government 600 million euros. 600 million. The dock worker called into the program to say not only did they not say anything about what Al-Bayrak had on the table, they did not report that Al-Bayrak, in fact the way he said it is that they did not report the fact that Al-Bayrak gave them 600 million euros and we the dock workers don't have a penny from it. That's how he put it. But interestingly, the government hasn't addressed that issue. Now, let me put a disclaimer to say we are critical of these deals because we don't think they are in the best of our national interest. Not necessarily against PPPs, public-private partnerships, which is what Al-Bayrak is about, which is what Africa 50 is about, which is what the ferry arrangement is about. We are saying it's well and good to do PPPs, but for heaven's sake, let's do PPPs that reflect our national interest, the best of our national interest. That's what we are interested in. We are not anti-Al-Bayrak or anti-Africa 50. We are pro-Gambia.
See, the PPPs, to start with, to do PPPs, you need a PPP Act.
Yeah.
We don't even have a PPP Act. So how is this government doing its PPPs? Just because the way they like it.
Yeah.
One. Two, when you do PPPs, everybody puts something on the table in terms of investment.
Yeah.
What did Al-Bayrak put on the table in terms of the Banjul port? Nothing. They just brought in management. That's all they brought in.
Yeah.
Couldn't we have done that locally? We could have, but we didn't. So Al-Bayrak, we invested so much money in the Gambia port, and Al-Bayrak brought in management, efficiency, and rationality into the system, and now they're reaping all the benefits and they're getting 80%.
The port from independence has always been profitable. They have always paid dividends to the government, contrary to what this government wants Gambians to believe. So Albayrak got a very profitable public enterprise, and all they had to do was to bring in their management and just have a superseding structure on the port. Because word is now that they've actually even maintenance all the equipment in the port. They didn't bring in any new equipment. They say our time is up. So we'll say thank you to our viewers and our listeners. We are back, and we hope we'll continue to do these programs as scheduled.
And before you conclude, I think we will apologize that today we've not been able to do the local language versions.
Yes.
And hopefully next week we'll give at least a summary of this to be able to move forward, because it's important that our local audience hears this and understands what's happening. We would have wanted to give you a summary of that, but there are so many things to discuss today. We couldn't do that, but next week we'll give at least a summary.
And tell them the reason why we are unable to do so.
Yeah, yeah. Part of it we were working, and just all of a sudden you started talking about NAWEC, the power went off. So we will do it again. Next week we will come back and give at least a summary of what we said today in the local languages and move on to the other themes.
Yeah.
So thank you all very much for following Echo TV International all around the world, and thank you to the staff of Echo TV for your great job. So I hand it back to you, Larry.
I keep saying every time I come in here, you see a new development.
Yes.
It's very inspiring.
Absolutely.
That you are dealing with a group of very young, very dedicated, very technically sound,
and very dynamic
individuals. And every time you come, you see something new.
Yeah.
And the something new is always an addition to the value of the program.
Yes.
So thank you to the Echo TV team and Usman and his team.
Yeah.
I think you are providing a service to Gambians that they really, truly appreciate.
Absolutely.
If you go by the kind of feedback we get. Thank you very much.
Thank you.